I know it said he was fired.
Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Little Frampton Comes Alive for you out there. One of the first live albums I listened to when I was a kid. That's how old that album is. So anyway, Keith left. I thought Keith was here. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, Keith, we'll put you up there. Anyway, Jack, a lot of sports to get to today. We had Keith will be talking about Bill Belichick. There he is. He's back. Keith will be talking about Bill Belichick. And there he is.
User error, sorry.
That's okay. It's all right. That's technology for you, you know.
I'm doing too many things at one time here.
Yeah. Well, you're a busy guy, Keith. What can I tell you? So, anyway, we were just going to get into Bill Belichick, Keith, and you know, making $10 million, $5.3 million for his staff, a high for an ACC team. Of course, he has his two of his sons working for him, and Matt Lombardi's a quarterback coach. Freddie Kitchen, the offensive coordinator.
And Mike Lombardi is the GM, who also is tied to Belichick's past. So that's it. It's a big Patriot presence in Chapel Hill.
Yes, there is.
Well, what Belichick did before getting this job at North Carolina, when he thought he might still go back to the NFL, reportedly they'd have weekly Zoom meetings, him, Lombardi, Josh McDaniel, and they would discuss the state of the NFL, the players, the teams to keep sharp. And then apparently, you know, when it became obvious to Bill Belichick there was a good chance he wasn't going to get an NFL job, and it would be 2 years in a row he'd be on the sideline. You know, Lombardi thought it would be a good idea, you know, if something came up in college. And we keep talking about the victory record, the most wins in NFL history, where Belichick's something like 14 wins away. But it might not mean as much to him as it means to people on the outside. He'd obviously like to get that record, but he wants to enjoy himself right now. He wants to get the coaching right now. And then Keith, doesn't he hold a record when you count playoff victories? That's just regular season victories. So he actually does have the most, victories, in NFL history, I believe.
It is just regular season that he's chasing. He would have the record if you counted everything. They played a lot more playoff games in his time than Don Shula did in his time. Obviously, they've added playoffs. As far as what his plans are, he wants to coach now. But I think there's no doubt that if the door opens up to go back to the NFL, he'll go. All you have to do is look at the contract, and it's only $1 million buyout, which is nothing in college football today after June 1st of this year. Now, I'm not saying there's no way he's going now, right? But he can get out of this contract pretty much anytime he wants after this first season. They're putting a lot of things in place. And even if it's one season, it puts a lot of spotlight on North Carolina. And already weird things are happening, right? They committed to doing the off-season Hard Knocks, and then they did from doing it. So there's a lot.
Why did they back off from doing it? Is everyone developing the Joe Shine syndrome because he was an absolute disaster on Hard Knocks?
Well, possibly. I was surprised they went for this no matter what the situation was, because Belichick was always said they'd never make me do it in the NFL. He was never in a position where they could force him to do it because of them being in the playoffs most years and whatnot. I was surprised he said, okay. There's no word on why they said no, other than the two sides couldn't come to an agreement. And it's probably about what kind of access they would have.
You would think at this point he wouldn't do it in the NFL, but now in college, if Belichick might kind of like being front and center on Hard Knocks. Everyone's focusing in on him, all the NFL teams, and it would increase his marketability. Not that it's not high as is, but it would basically make a statement. Look, guys, I'm here. I'm very much active. I'm not going to be at North Carolina forever. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, it would have been good for the university as well, as they continue to try to, up their profile in the ACC and maybe make themselves more attractive to other conferences as things change in years to come, or just attract recruits and whatnot. It probably would have benefited both sides. I mean, the Joe Shine thing, that stuff's going to happen. I mean, that could have gone the other way and he would have looked like a genius. And that's the roll the dice. Anytime you're on these Hard Knocks things, and you do have a little bit of editorial control, but not a lot. You give it up. That's one of the things you give up. So that's why Belichick never wanted to do it. And probably why he's not doing it now. To me, publicity's mostly good. If it's bad, it's bad. I mean, at least Joe Shine and the Giants credit. I found that iteration of Hard Knocks more interesting than anything I've seen on Hard Knocks in 10 years. I thought it was a lot of it was really fun stuff behind the scenes, off the football field. I thought it was a lot of fun. They know.
Well,
probably.
yeah, but too bad Shine kind of screwed that whole deal up. So, if he'd done it the other way, and John Mara, it's funny. It's going to go down in Giants lore now. John Mara saying, if Saquon signs with the Eagles, I'm not going to sleep very good tonight. So yeah, definitely. So Oregon head coach Lanning to join the $10 million or greater annual salary club. He signed the extension on Thursday. So, I mean, he had a perfect season, Keith. So I think that's fine.
Well, yeah, perfect season until he didn't, when he got beat in the playoff where it really matters. But Dan Lanning's a good coach. He's a really, really good coach. After a year, Alabama was 1 year. I think it was after his first year. Alabama, when Boeheim retired, he's the first. Boeheim, good grief. Where did I get that name from? When they were looking for a head coach, he was the first guy they went to. And he quickly said no. He had roots in Georgia and ties to Kirby Smart. I don't think that's what kept him from going to Bama, but I think he's comfortable up there in the Northwest, and he's done a great job with that program. These contracts are almost as good as the paper they're written on, because coaches get out of them all the time, right? Somebody else wants them. The teams are willing to pay the buyouts. I don't remember the years on the extension, but that's a lot of money. There's only a couple of guys, maybe just Kirby Smart, making more money than him right now.
Yeah. So anyway, Chris F. Grave saying, let's do this. What the hell am I saying? Okay. Chat room's going bonkers for the Mac, Jack, and Keith Friday. Have you ever been in one of the chat rooms, Keith?
Well, I think he's talking about our comment section, but yeah, I go to the groups a lot. I belong to a lot of groups and I share the show to them. And, sometimes at night when we're sitting there kind of watching TV, I'll go through the chat room, see what's going on. And some of them are like, out of control, depending on what topic they're talking about.
Right.
But it's fun to kind of, I don't interact much, but.
Yeah, I don't go to chat rooms at all. So I don't know what they're doing over there. Good morning, Rick Sherlock. But you come in today. Loyal viewer on all our shows. Oh, Jay Train's here too. Here we go.
Matt, can we talk some sports, please? Okay, we see the names on there. Yeah, you're giving accolades about the last minute because people are making comments. Let's get to the sports. Come on, guys.
Okay. NFL Bengals defensive end Trey Hendrickson permission. They're giving him permission to seek a trade. I'm surprised they're doing it, to tell you the truth. That's one of their best players on defense anyway. So
I think it shows you that they're not willing to. They may not be willing to pay what needs to be paid to be a winner in the NFL. When you're letting your best defensive player, arguably, kind of just set up a deal for himself. Sometimes teams will give guys this latitude, like the Rams did. Maybe find out what the true value is of the player before they pay him. I don't get the sense that's the case here. I get the sense that there will be a deal in place for Hendrickson. And I read the last couple of days the Patriots are a place that he may end up. They've never found a guy to replace Matthew Judon. And that's a position that they have great need for on the edge. And they probably won't be in a position to draft Carter out of Penn State. And that his injury puts another spin on that. So Hendrickson's going to be very sought after, though. He's a really good player.
Hendrickson is outstanding, and I'm surprised they're not making him a priority. They're, along with Jamar Chase, of course. Trey Hendrickson, they franchise tag the other receiver, but Jamar Chase is going to get a major deal. Okay, and to let Hendrickson go and to work out a trade, he's worth the number one draft choice if a team is willing to pay him the money, and he's worth it. I mean, look at what the Raiders just paid Max Crosby. And at this stage, I would put Hendrickson a little ahead of Max Crosby. And Crosby was just made, the highest paid, defensive lineman in the history of the NFL.
Yeah. But, I think Hendricks would want to go to a winning team. I don't think he wants to go to the Patriots. No offense, Keith.
He wants to go. I'm just saying that's some of the.
He wants the money. He wants the money. That's the primary thing. Of course, he wants to go to a winning team. They all do. But if a team is willing to give him the type of contract he wants, name one bad team he could possibly go to. Even like you mentioned, a team like the Patriots. You could sell the Patriots to a player because they have a franchise quarterback in Drake May. They got a franchise coach in Mike Vrabel, and they're going to be better. And you could sell it by saying in a couple of years, we're, going to be in the playoffs, and then we're going to contend for Super Bowl down the line. So I think you can sell any team to any player if you give them the contract they want.
You mentioned the two things that will attract free agents is Vrabel and Drake May. Gives this team hope. For the first time in a while, and under the right circumstances, things turn around quickly in the NFL. In some instances, we've seen it a lot in the last decade, right? So
look at the Washington Commanders. Where they came.
Great example.
They're going number 2 overall in the draft. 1 year, 1 game away from the Super Bowl. The following season, it could happen quickly.
Again, back to Cincinnati though, and being surprised that they aren't willing to. I think they don't have unlimited resources in Cincinnati the way some other organizations do. And Chase is probably going to be their priority. And if I'm a fan in Cincinnati, I'm wondering whether my team's really committed to winning a Super Bowl when you're letting your best defensive player just figure out a way out of town.
And in the prime of his career, who's younger than a Myles Garrett. I mean, but the way the cap works, if you have 3 major impact players and give them all top dollar, it does hamper the rest of your roster to an extent.
True. That's why you see, a lot of these teams, when there's injuries, they don't have a next guy to step up because they're not deep on the offensive line. They're not deep in places where they can't spend that extra money, and that's why you see teams struggle, especially on both sides of the line. I think that's where that lack of money to go around really affects these teams for sure.
Well, that's why T. Higgins got franchised. They're not going to sign him to long-term deals. That's how they're going to be able to pay T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, and Joe Burrow. Those are 4 major salaries. So a couple of them are going to be going elsewhere. T. Higgins will be with the Bengals this year. I don't think they're going to be able to work out an extension, but he's probably gone next year because they would have franchised him, tagged him 2 years in a row, and they're not allowed to do it a 3rd year.
Right. Bengals might want to win now.
So, the window is wide open right now.
Yeah, goes quickly.
The 49ers are willing to listen to trades about anyone with their current cap situation. That's according to Matt Schefter.
It's starting to look like the 49ers are like in a full rebuild here. I know with Bosa getting released in San Diego, there's again chatter around about reuniting the brothers on the San Francisco 49ers. But given what they're doing right now and purging salaries, I don't know that they're going to be looking to take on that big contract. So it's going to be interesting. The most interesting part of all of this and them tearing this team, well, looks to be them at least tearing this team down to some extent, is what they do with Brock Purdy, because he's going to need to be paid or move on in the next year, right? Next year, if I'm not mistaken. And Brock Purdy has not shown that he can carry an NFL team. He's really good, efficient quarterback when all his weapons are in place. But he showed the last couple of years when they've had injuries, he's not going to step up and carry you to a playoff berth. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Purdy and some other guys.
Yeah. So Pat McAfee will not be taking the show to the draft. Was treated disrespectfully by the NFL.
Pat McAfee disrespects people all day long on his shows, all day long. And I don't like all of his act. I was really concerned when he came on College because I really like the show. I think he's been a good addition there, adding some energy. But when I watch his daily show, it's like watching a train wreck, and he rips people up and down. But when he gets a little bit of criticism, he doesn't like it. He's gotten it from inside ESPN. He doesn't like it. He's gotten it now from NFL folks at the combine. I mean, come on, get a little thicker skin. You're making a boatload of money. What do you care? Jeez. If you're going to give it out, you got to be able to take it, right? So
I'm not a big Pat McAfee fan anyway. I mean, he's not professional. He talks to his 2 colleagues on the show, and I'm not a big fan of the show.
There's days it comes and goes with me. There's days I don't like him at all. I do like him as I said, on game day.
Yes.
On Saturday mornings, where I think him and Saban had a great playing off each other last year. It was really good. But his show, you're right, Mac. I'm not the biggest fan. I would watch it because there'd be some, see the Aaron Rodgers train wreck weekly and stuff like that.
and that's not going to happen anymore. So, good morning, David. Glad to have you. Jack should be back, I think, in a little bit. So, anyway, where are we at? Oh, did you know that Pac-Man Jones said he never used his own urine for NFL drug tests? That's how he got away with smoking pot when he was in.
I read that article, and this isn't a new thing, by the way. You remember the Whizzinator years ago? I can't remember what player it was. It was like 15 years ago. The guy, I think he was for the Vikings. Rick, you can correct me if I'm disparaging your team, but I feel like it was a Viking, and he talked about how the fact that he'd say. I don't remember all the details, but he would find clean urine, whether it was his when he was clean or somebody else, and if you think these guys are stupid, man, but they must talk to smart people because they find a way around every type of drug testing you can think of. They find a way around it. So the guys how stupid are the guys who get caught then? Think about that. Right?
Yeah. Maybe, yes, like Jack is missing.
Pudding.
Oh, man. Former Raiders wide receiver Hunter Renfrow has retired after 5 seasons with the Raiders. Not sure why. Maybe he just wants to spend more time with his kids. Maybe he's, maybe he's just done with football.
Did he? Is this is it for sure? Because I remember seeing an article. This was a couple of days ago that he was saying, "Oh, the reports of my retirement are a little exaggerated." So it might have changed. I haven't seen anything. I was looking quick. I don't see anything right now. So you're probably right, but there were definitely reports, and he had kind of refuted them a bit. But he's been around a bit. Usually, when you hear sports figures or politicians saying they want to spend more time with their family, it's not a good thing. They didn't go on their own, but he's had a nice career. He probably can move on and be happy.
Yeah. Eagles are re-signing Miles Brown to a 3-year, $51 million contract. I think we all thought that was going to happen, especially Pags.
Yeah,
he did a real good job for him last year.
He did. Is that the guy who came from the Giants or no?
No.
That was the other guy. They've got that defense, and they're going to lose a couple guys, and they're still going to be the best defense in the NFL. And they're talking about adding a couple of guys in free agency, or they built most of that. Well, a lot of that defense they built through the draft, except a handful of guys, and they've done a great job. That team is so talented. I'm surprised they've only won one Super Bowl, quite frankly, in the last 3. They could have won the last 3. They lost one of them, obviously. Last year went in the tank because of whatever was going on inside the organization, or 2 years ago. But this year, by the time they got to the Super Bowl, they were just a dominant team, and you can see the talent difference between them and most of the teams they play is huge on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, San Fran just didn't have a chance. They got dominated. I mean, Kansas City.
No, yeah. That Kansas City game, I mean, Kansas City, maybe they were winning close games, and they're certainly not the team that they were the last couple of years. But that was just a bad matchup. They had no chance at none from pretty much the outset.
They're going to bring Travis Kelce back. They say he's a situational player. I mean, are you going to pay that kind of money for a situational player, Keith?
Yeah, I feel like he'll be more of a situational player. I think the Chiefs bringing him back, I think they need to sit him down, similar to what the Jets had kind of said to Rodgers when they were still considering bringing him back. The outside distractions need to be cut down, right? Every time you got an off week, you can't be flying to Brazil and China for concerts with Taylor Swift. You got to get maybe in a little bit better game shape. He came in a bit out of shape. He looked a little heavy all year. He's obviously a big guy anyway, but he looked a little heavy all year and slower. And I do think with a recommitment from Kelce, and I think in a way he's embarrassed a little bit by his performance. And and the team's performance in the Super Bowl, and he had picked it up a little bit at the end of the year. I think he's got enough pride where he is a guy who could bounce back. I'm not saying he will 100%, but I think there's a good possibility he'll bounce back and be a big part of that offense, at least for another year. A lot of miles on him, though. I mean,
yeah, there is a lot of miles on him. I mean, Taylor Swift, yeah, I mean, she did support him last year, that's for sure. But I mean, she's still going to have concerts to go to. And I mean, is Travis going to be okay with her without him?
Well, I hope so. I mean, geez, I would hope he could survive a couple of weeks without his fiance. I mean, he's got other things to keep him busy, like football, Travis. You know, I mean, geez, when I travel for work, my wife doesn't follow with me. I think they can make it work. So
They should be able to.
Or if not,
really
she's got another great album. If it doesn't work out and they have to break up, she's got another great album for a breakup.
That's
right?
true. She does sing about breakup songs a lot.
Probably be her best album ever after breaking up with Travis Kelce.
Yes.
I don't wish them ill well, by the way.
Well, me either. So Patrick Mahomes, of course, we talked about, looked really bad. Almost all year, Keith. I mean, interceptions. I know his offensive line. He was running around, maybe running for his life sometimes.
He was in the Super Bowl.
Yes, yeah, he did make it in the Super Bowl. But next year, I mean,
they need to improve that offensive line. They need to improve the weapons around him. Rice will be back, theoretically. Worthy will be better. He played pretty good football through the end of the year, similar to what Rice did his rookie year. Worthy, I thought, came on at the end of the year and played much better. There's no way I think Patrick Mahomes has reached his pinnacle because he's still a young. What's he? 28, 29. I'm 29, maybe. I'm not even sure. 28 or 29. If they improve those things, the problems with the Chiefs' offense are not Patrick Mahomes related. They're offensive line related and they're weapon related. They need a better running game. We talked about this a lot, right? Even before Barkley now has reinvigorated and Henry have reinvigorated the interest in running backs. You need a running game to be able to function effectively in the NFL. Even you don't have to run the ball 40 times a game, but you've got to have an effective running game to at least slow down pass rushes and whatnot. I think Mahomes is certainly himself capable of turning it back to where he was, but he can't do it without some improvement in those areas on that team.
That's true. You mentioned running backs, and you know, a lot of you hear a lot about using, you know, the two-back system. But if you look at last year, Saquon Barkley, unbelievable year. Derrick Henry, unreal year. The running back for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor, great year. The Bengals is, again, who's running back for the Bengals?
Right. Who is the back for the Bengals right now? That's a great question. Let's take a quick look. I'll find it for you real quick.
All right.
Just got to get to their depth chart and remind myself. It's hard to keep track of all these. Well, their number Zach Moss and Chase Brown are the guys listed on the depth chart right now. That's not really going to, excite anybody.
No, not at all. So, and let's welcome back Jack. How you doing, Jack?
Hello, Jack.
The technical difficulty, guys. I wasn't holding out for more money.
I think it's about one.
No.
Seems to happen every week, Jack.
Yeah.
Well, he's not getting no more money from me, so I don't know where he's getting money from. So, Jack, we were talking about, of course, some of the NFL things while you were gone. And I don't know if you saw this, but Pac-Man Jones said he never used his own urine for NFL drug tests. So that's why he was never caught.
I mean, how did he get away with it? I mean, sometimes guys are telling the truth in that regard, and sometimes they're fabricating things. Pac-Man Jones isn't necessarily the most credible guy if you look at him in the sum total. I mean, this is a guy who had a security guard to keep him in line, and he was fighting with his own security guard.
Yeah, I remember.
So and he was involved in that, terrible incident out in Las Vegas where someone got shot. Supposedly one of his friends was held accountable, but I'll give Pac-Man Jones, Adam Jones, credit because he stopped using the name Pac-Man later to his NFL career because he wanted to stay in the league. He did what he could to stay in the league. So, he conducted himself the right way. And, if he's telling the truth, how did he get away with it? It reflects really bad on the league. Really bad on the league. And, but if he didn't get away with it, he's just trying maybe to create some headlines. I mean, I don't know what the truth is here. I mean, but when I take him at his word, basically, if push came to shove and I'm asked whether I believe him or not, yeah, I'll believe him, but I want to find out how he got away with it if he didn't already, say how.
Well, Keith said, that makes the ones that did get caught look pretty stupid,
They look even worse. Right?
Well, it makes you think, Keith Mack, what about some who supposedly got caught who might be innocent? If Pac-Man Jones could, get away with it, is anyone switching a sample of, I mean,
Well, that's a good point. If you want to undermine somebody, I guess you could switch a bad sample in for a good one, right?
Right. And we saw in the documentary 30 by 30, the sprinter Butch Reynolds, who claimed his innocence. We don't know for sure whether Butch Reynolds is innocent or not, but they showed with the lab how there could be some mix-ups. And, we keep hearing all these athletes who get caught, in steroids, this and that. I mean, the biggest excuse is, well, they didn't knowingly take it. That they say that when the evidence is so overwhelming, they can't deny it. But I'm sure there have been rare cases when athlete is totally innocent and, and he turns up with a positive result for whatever reason, because maybe the lab handled it the wrong way. Maybe someone set him up. Maybe there was just an innocent mistake. But everyone denies being on the stuff. So, we can't believe anyone in this day and age. But I'm sure there are a few guys who actually were innocent. Maybe maybe less than 10%. But it's horrible. The guy's completely innocent and he's accused of something and he has his reputation, smeared.
Yeah. So, Eagles re-signing Miles Brown to a 3-year, $51 million contract. As I was telling Keith, Pags knew this was going to happen. We all kind of knew it was going to happen, Jack.
Well, I mean, guys are being let go, being signed. Darius Slay, for example, was let go by the Eagles, but he might come back on the reduced contract. What slipped under the radar? A signing that I kind of liked, and this guy's been playing forever. Bobby Wagner's back with the Commanders for another year. A 10-time Pro Bowler, future Hall of Famer, and talk about a guy who just seemed to be playing forever. He was a legend at Seattle, and they moved on from him, and the thought was, well, Bobby Wagner's at the end of the line, but he's kind of. He gets it done year after year, and he's a great veteran presence, a great leader there. And, nice signing by Washington to bring him back.
Leadership is underrated in the NFL, majorly everywhere in sports. Leadership is underrated, and people don't pay for it enough. And guys like Bobby Wagner, I think, show that. He brought some maturity into that Washington locker room, and I think it showed. Great point, Jack.
Well, he was a leading tackler last year for them. So,
I'm not saying he can't play. I just mean, guys with good character mean something, because there's a lot of guys who need some leadership in this league for sure.
I think you have to produce on the field. You don't have to be the best player, but I think you have to be a good one. I mean, like take a kicker, field goal kicker, punter. Those aren't the guys who are generally leaders. I mean, you hope to get it from, the quarterback position. But, most of the teams, if you look at who their leader is, it's on the defensive side of the ball for the most part. That's something we never broke up team by team, who might be the leader, because we don't know for sure. It's just like an image. You take like the Minnesota Vikings. My guess would be it would be Justin Jefferson. That would be a fun thing if we had to guess who the leader was on each team. Who's the leader on the Patriots now? Do they have one?
The Patriots, I would say it's tough because some of the guys that have been leaders have been, moved on from that team in the last 2 years. Right now, I would say Hunter Henry's probably a leader on that team, and I think the quarterback, you'll see him take a step forward in that role here in the next year as well. And
during the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era, when they won top a lot of those years, who was the real leader? It's easy to say Brady.
Yeah.
Obviously, on the field, it was Brady.
Yeah.
He was one of the leaders, but did one guy stand on particular?
There's a lot of guys that you could point at to. Rodney Harrison in his time there was a big leader in that locker room. Willie McGinnis was, again, but that's really the first iteration of their dynasty, I guess. Later on, guys like Julian Edelman were leaders in that locker room as well. And Teddy Bruschi. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I think there was a lot of guys on that team that stepped up at different times. And Brady as well. I don't want to take anything away from him. But you're right. It's easy to go to a guy like Brady, but that team had a lot of great leaders. That's why they were so good for so long.
Well, even Mac with the Giants in their heyday.
Yeah.
The real leaders, it wasn't the quarterback, Phil Simms. You could say he was one of the leaders, but he wasn't the biggest leader. The biggest leader was maybe Harry Carson, above everyone else, even above LT for pure leadership.
George Martin early on, I think, was as well. Phil McConkey, I think, was probably an underrated guy in that locker room too. Yeah.
I mean, Phil was fun going guy. I mean, I don't know if that's a leader or not, but I guess it's
fiery
good
player
to have a
though.
guy like that around.
Fiery player.
Oh, he was.
Reminds me a lot of Edelman. Reminds me a little bit of McConkey, quite frankly. They're kind of similar personality.
Edelman's a much better player.
No, I meant personality-wise.
Yeah. Mark Rivera was probably too quiet to be a leader.
Yeah.
You could be quiet and be a leader if you kind of lead by example and the other guys follow.
Yeah. You could. You definitely could. So it was nice to talk about the Giants without cringing for a little bit today. So.
I'm sorry we got to go far back in time, Mac.
Yes, a long time ago. So a little bit of NBA for you. Of course, I think we already talked about this. LeBron goes over 50,000 points. I mean, what can you say? The guy has been around forever and is still playing really well.
I still like LeBron. LeBron's sometimes his own worst enemy with some of the, China stuff, with the Bronny stuff. But, push that. I try to separate things, right? Things that are outside of the off the court and on the court. LeBron James has been a great player for a long time. On the court, he plays hard, it seems, pretty much every night. Early in his career, I thought he really got it. One of those guys who really got it. And then later on in his career, maybe not so much, started to kind of get a little full of his own press releases. But look at the guy's won and the guy's gone and people have come to play with him. He's won in LA. He's won in Cleveland. He won in Miami. He still has to carry. And I think when the thing really turned for LeBron, the decision or whatever they called that special ESPN show he had to have when he chose Miami when he was leaving Cleveland. And I think he's had a hard time living that down ever since, even though he's been very successful and gone back to Cleveland and won a championship there.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. for one season, let's say a season started today, would you say LeBron is still one of the top 5 players in the NBA? To get his reputation, who would you rather? Would you rather have 5 guys more than him? Okay, Gilgeous Alexander's 1, Steph Curry's 2, Jokic is maybe 3. And
Luka's
even
there.
a maybe there, that's not even a slam dunk anymore, you know?
No, I'm putting Luka in that. I don't think
I
LeBron
would put him
would
ahead
be
of
top 5.
Luka. I would put him ahead of Luka
LeBron?
right at this moment.
Yeah.
Right at this moment, you know, LeBron is a slightly better player than Luka, and I'm talking about the two of them at their best.
Well,
LeBron
Luka-
gives you a little more.
Luka lays off the beer and donuts. He'd probably be better off. But
But
Well,
logically,
He hasn't
Because-
done, he
you
hasn't
see
done
him
that.
side by-
He hasn't done that since he's been with the Lakers. Come on, Keith.
but you see
besides
them
you know, with Lakers,
side
that's
by
only like 3
side.
weeks.
Hey, you see them side by side playing together. And even when Luka's playing well now, and LeBron's a tiny bit better.
Because Luka's going to make, we talked about this Wednesday night. Luka's going to make LeBron better because LeBron doesn't have to, everything doesn't have to go through LeBron anymore. And he's going to be able to
Right.
focus and reserve his energy a little bit. And he'll be a better player with Luka there in the mix. And maybe he plays a little longer too. I'm not trying to disrespect LeBron at all. He'd be on my team, whether it be on the first 5, I don't know. I'd have to think about it longer, but he'd definitely be on my team. He'd be a great 6th man. How about that?
Yeah,
All-star
I mean,
teams don't win
yeah, I
anyway.
guess he would be if he wanted to stay around.
You kind of wonder the way
That
some
is-
players. Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, I don't know at his age if I'd want to be a 6th man. I mean, I'd want to kind of watch my sons play and enjoy a little bit of life. I mean, all the money he's made, that's what I would want to do.
He handled this Bronny thing really badly, and I think that's hurt him a lot too, because Bronny should still be in college, and he listened to his father, he listened to other people, and listen, Bronny's getting paid a decent amount of money, and right now
Well,
isn't
well,
very good. So
Keith, if Bronny wanted to stay in college, he would have stayed in college. LeBron wasn't
I'm not so
going
sure.
to tell him
I'm
to
not so
come out
sure.
of college. He was leaving it to Bronny what Bronny wanted to do. The problem is Bronny, had the issue where he had to be out most of the first season. That held back his development. He needed the other year.
I
Maybe
agree.
from LeBron's end, he was thinking, I don't know how much longer I'm going to play, and I want to play with Bronny. But LeBron did handle it poorly, but he was very well intentioned. I mean, I'm sure every decision he made, he was thinking of Bronny first, thinking that this was best for Bronny. Because remember last
You'd be
year,
wrong.
well, last year he was watching an NBA game and he said, "You mean to tell me Bronny's not better than X amount of guys who are in the league already?" So he really felt that Bronny can, kind of fast track it a little bit.
If he wanted what was best for Bronny, Bronny'd still be in college today. Bronny wasn't ready for the NBA. The only reason Bronny came out is the Lakers made him a 1st-round draft pick, and he was going to get paid.
Well,
Otherwise,
second
he'd
round.
still in college.
He went in the second. Well, he went 55th, I think, overall. So,
Well, maybe I missed it. I thought he went in the 1st round. I could be wrong. My memory's not that great these days.
but
But either way, he got paid. And the best thing for Bronny, and I feel bad for Bronny, I'm one of the few guys who goes on here and defends the guy because what happened to him isn't necessarily his fault unless he put his foot down and said, no, I'm not ready. We may never know how good Bronny James could be.
But Bronny, if he liked the college life, he could have stayed in college, and Bronny would have gotten money on the college rules these days.
True.
And even if he didn't, the James family is so ridiculously wealthy. Bronny could have been there 4 or 5 years in college if he wanted to.
If it was about his development as a basketball player and us find out and Bronny find out who the best player Bronny could be he wouldn't be in the NBA today.
Well, if you look at
I
the
agree.
because with the Lakers, you keep seeing a DNP next to Bronny's name game after game with 4 other guys, even established young players like a Cam Reddish who's on that team. They don't get to play. And you wonder at what point can Bronny be elevated?
I don't. This
Yeah,
is my
it's gonna be
point.
that much better where they could play him next year. If you're not giving him any minutes this year, how many minutes can you give him next year? I mean,
You don't develop on this level, right? You can't develop from where he is to a great player on this, maybe a serviceable player. I don't know, but not at this level because you don't get that type of coaching where you're getting coached, but you're not getting coached like you are in college.
eventually this is going to come to a head because this isn't going to be like Giannis and his brother who has a spot on Milwaukee because of Giannis and is happy just to have a roster spot.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, LeBron is going to get antsy. He's going to want to see Bronny get some minutes. Bronny's going to want to get some minutes. And if he's not ready, you know, there's going to be some type of problem.
Agreed. And I feel again, I have some sympathy for Bronny in this whole situation myself.
Well, he wouldn't even be there, as Keith said, if it wasn't for LeBron. Tell him to come out and play early. And he's not ready.
Yeah.
He's not ready to be an NBA player. So,
And the sad part is we may never know how good he could have been. We don't know. He may be terrible. I don't know. But I can't make
Keep in mind, at one point, before he got sick in college, you know, had the issue, you know, the heart.
that was before he got to college, by the
One
way.
of the mock drafts had him going as high as number 15 overall, not because of LeBron, based on his ability. So there was ability there. If he went to college and played, the ability was there for him to be a first-round draft choice. Maybe not like a lottery choice, of course, but, you know, a viable NBA player. I'm not saying he would have logged a lot of minutes, but who would have legitimately made a roster if his name wasn't James.
Agreed. I mean, you look at his people tend to look at his numbers at USC, and they weren't very good, but they would forget he missed the first half of the season because he had the heart issue before he ever got to campus. Missed the first half of the season. He wasn't playing a lot even when he came back until the end of the season, and he played much, much better. But he needed at least another year in college to kind of develop what he'd been building there. So,
yeah, I agree. So I read one of the funniest things I've ever read about basketball today. Golden State's head coach Steve Kerr calls out the refs for missing traveling violations. Who doesn't travel today?
I didn't know there was any rule against it anymore. Watching the games, the Euro step
I mean,
became like something. Jeez, good God, I agree, Mac. That is hard.
The Harlem Globetrotters could compete today with the way they play basketball. I mean, just run down the court, put it up in the back.
We talked about LeBron. Sometimes LeBron looks like a running back coming down the lane because he just tucks the ball in and runs the
You know, you talk about inventing new sports. People invent new sports. And I can invent now, hearing what you said, Mac, a new type of basketball league where you allow a player to take up to four or five steps without dribbling the ball. But once he's taken those amount of steps up, the defender's allowed to grab him. You know what I mean? No, without a foul being called. You know, I mean, just an idea, great. You know, make it a little like rugby or whatever. It's rough type of basketball.
Yeah, we talked on my show one day about inventing new sports kind of like that. And it was, I think Rick Sherlock brought up like a mixture of football and basketball as one sport. So it would be interesting to watch.
Mac and myself actually invented it. I got to give Mac a little more
All
credit.
right, well,
fan involvement, Mac.
I'm not trying to take any
credit. Where
I'm
the
not trying to
fans in
copyright
the
this.
outfield, if you wear a designated Yankee shirt, you know, and the opposing team hits a ball and you catch it, you know, and the stands on the fly, it's out. Can you imagine a fan involvement, you know, with the shirts or whatever? Or one fan per row.
Well, I was going to say you need to go like, say it's the Red Sox and Yankees, Red Sox fan, Yankee fan, Red Sox fan, Yankee fan. Then you have a real battle royale in the stands. That'd be fun.
I'm reading a book now by a really
Yeah.
good author, Andy Martino, about the Yankees and the Brian Cashman years.
What's the name of that? I'll have to get it. What is it? You know the name?
I got in the library.
Got to be on Kindle. If I can't get on Kindle, I can't read it now.
Mhm.
My wife's got me saving trees, apparently.
Oh, by the way, I mentioned this to Mac before the show, and this is an example about my one criticism of Brian Cashman. The one thing he doesn't do well, he never gets ahead of the curve. The Oakland Athletics, they extended their 24-year-old outfielder Lawrence Butler, who's going to be one of their, foundation players going forward. Really good young outfielder, 24, 7-year deal. They have a club option for an 8th year, so they could have him the next 8 years. But they signed him for the 7 years for $65 million total. So they're going to be paying him a lot less than they would have to later on. And the player gets lifetime security.
Does he have opt-outs too?
He doesn't have opt-outs.
That's
no.
good. That's the way it should
And
be.
they have a club option because they got way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Because the player has 2 options when they're young. If they don't sign the deal and they don't make it, wow, they bypass a chance to have lifetime wealth. Okay, and they'll have to be, they'll have to get a job like anyone else at some point. But this way, they have lifetime security. But the player also gambles that if he's a star, he's going to leave a lot of money on the table as well. So it's kind of iffy. Is it good for the player, not good for the player? I'm not sure. Look at the case of Aaron Hicks. He signed 7 years, $70 million. At the time he signed it, I was thinking, Hicks could have gotten about $14 million a year, one more year, produce. But he took the $10 million a year, and it turned out good thing for Hicks he did because he flamed out after that.
They're still paying him
My
$10
point
million.
is,
They're still paying him.
Anthony Volpe is the perfect case with the Yankees. Brian Cashman is bundling this whole thing up with the organization. By the time they're going to try to sign Volpe to an extension, he might be 2 years away from free agency, and he might feel, I give me a pretty nice contract. I'm going to just go to free agency. And then if the Yankees sign him when he's a free agent a year before, they're going to have to cough over so much more money. I mean, you get ahead of the curve the way Oakland,
Agreed.
is doing with Lawrence Butler here. And the Yankees don't do that.
I agree 100%.
They tried it with
Well-
they did try it with Aaron Hicks to their credit, but that didn't work.
Well, when Dr.
So I
Paul
heard the
was
last of her picks.
when Dr. Paul was on with us, he didn't know even why they would give him an extension. He's gotten steadily worse since he's played shortstop. His batting average is like, I don't know, below 200.
In the 240s.
Well, all right, 240.
And it's
240.
on
It's
base, but say he's electrifying on the bases. He makes things happen. He's good defensively.
I'm just telling you.
And he's a talent that's going to get better. He's going to be should be a foundation player for the Yankees for years ago. You listen to Dr. Paul, then he gets to be better, and Dr. Paul's not going to want to give him the money at that point. So you're going to wind up losing him with Dr. Paul. I mean, come on. I mean, we've been through this with the players. Oh, no, don't give him this. Don't give him that. I can understand the Soto situation. The money was crazy. If someone said at that point, don't give him the money, that's valid at that point. I'm talking about when you can sign the player early on.
You got to be right. The thing is, you got to be right, though. And I agree about Volpe. I would take that. I would roll the dice there and do that, Jack. They made a mistake with Hicks, and maybe that's left a bad taste in Cashman's mouth. I don't know, but
well, the Padres with Fernando Tatis, they signed him a 13-year deal when he was age 24.
Yeah.
till the age of 37 for $24 million a year. It's a risk because if he flames out, you're paying a ton of money.
Figures. There's always a risk.
But if he's going to be a star the way they anticipate, that's going to be a bargain because the price is just going to go up over the years. And this way you have a foundation player, a franchise player per se, all these years. It's a chance, but do you believe in the guy? Do you believe in Anthony Volpe, guys? Do you believe he's going to be at no worse than a decent player?
I believe in Anthony Volpe, yes.
I believe in him too. Mac?
If he's just going to be decent, why are you going to give him all this money?
No,
I
think
said
he'll
no
be better
worse than a
He'll be better
decent
than that.
player. I think he's going to be an outstanding player going forward.
I think you got to give him some time to develop. He's a young kid. He's learning on, at the highest level, and I'm willing to give him some time to develop. I think he's going to develop into a fine player.
I wouldn't, in a case, I'll give an example who I wouldn't give a deal to right now. I'd have to wait a year, and you still have time. Jason Dominguez. I'm not certain about him yet. You got to be very confident because he has to prove to me that defensively he could get it done. He's been a bit shaky. He has to show, the potential, with his bat to come through this year. So I got to see something this year. But he won't be a free agent for a number of years after this year. So you still got time.
There's time.
To study him this season. But if Jason Dominguez has an outstanding year, you got to get ahead of the curve with him too.
We've only seen him in short, spurts, right? And we need to see him over a full season. He needs to stay healthy and he needs to improve his defense, as you said, Jack. And then we'll start talking about that for sure.
Mac, and you and I talked about Marcus Stroman on the last show that he should just shut up. He'll get his opportunity, and he's getting it. Lewis Gill is going to be out till the summer. Stroman is back in the rotation. This is put up or shut up. He's getting the opportunity. No arguing. He can't show any discontent. If Stroman wants to stick it to the Yankees, pitch well. That'll prove saying you guys, didn't show faith in me and look what I'm doing now. And if he pitches well, he'll get in all the innings. Then his option for next year kicks in for Stroman. He'll get $18.5 million next year. He has to pitch 140 innings. But if he pitches well, he'll get a chance to pitch those innings.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, if it's anything like his first start, that's not going to happen, Jack. So.
Well, guys, I got to jump because I got to find my guest. I don't know where he is, but he's not in my studio yet. So I got to send a message and see if he's showing. So Mike Westhoff scheduled this morning. So hopefully he shows. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, Keith. We'll see you Sunday.
See you Sunday, guys. Bye-bye.
Take care. So before we go, Jack, I wanted to get this in. The Knicks lose to LA in overtime. Brunson expected to miss some time with a rolled ankle. So,
losing to Brunson, they'll have no hope in the playoffs. We should be back come playoff time. Like Karl Anthony Towns said it best, it's next man up. But even with a healthy Brunson, they're clearly behind the Celtics and the Cavaliers at this point, and they'd have to probably beat them both to get to the NBA Finals. It's a tough one. The Knicks seem destined to have a good regular season record, but not be as serious a championship threat as we thought they'd be.
Yeah, I agree. Unless something happens by the end of the year. Real quick, Excalibur 4 says the NHL trade deadline is today. I really don't follow it, so thanks for letting us know. So we got to get out of here, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you Sunday. Have a great one.